Welcome back to the Gong Show. Today we're going to be working on this Troy built, and it just don't want to run. So as you can see, we give it a few pulls and nothing happens. So this is going to be a pretty standard video. Hopefully you pick up a few tips and tricks. Oh, there you go. So it only took like 40,000 pulls to get it to start. And you can hear it hunting, searching, the idles going up and down. So we're going to start by taking off the air cover filter. The air filter cover, see, I still can't talk. And there's going to be 4 bolts. There's going to be 2 silver bolts, and there's going to be 2 black bolts. And I believe they are 7mm and 8mm. The silver bolts go into the carburetor itself, and the black bolts go into the frame of the machine. Kind of lock everything together. And on the back of the plastic cover that I'm about to pull off, there's a little knobbin or nugget that sticks out that your air rebreather hose goes on. And I'm going to point at that right now. So make sure you put your hose back on there. And we're just going to take this top plastic cover off. Get that out of the way. You can't get the fuel tank off without removing this top cover. Basically on these machines, and these are my favorites to work on. A lot of people hate these carburetors, but these are my absolute favorite because they're so simple to work with. And if they're dirty, they're easy to clean. And if they're broken, you know about it. And as long as you don't break them taking them apart or putting them back together, because they are all plastic, they're just a joy to work on. Now that I'm pointing at right there is just a little clip on the bottom side. You see I'm pointing there? It goes in that little hole and it just clips in place. So there's no real trick to getting it out. You just grab that plastic and you pull it straight up and it will come out. Sometimes it breaks, but most of the time it doesn't. And there's a couple of bolts in the top of this housing to take your cord off. There you go, everything's out of the way. The tank just slides right off the top. And you might need some pliers to loosen the fuel line. Give it a twist, take the clamp off, pull it off, and your carburetor is free. I use the vice grips every once in a while to stop the fuel from leaking out while I'm messing with it. That's what you saw just a second ago. Once you take the tank off, you don't need it. There's 2 linkages. One that is for your choke. That's the one that comes straight across the front of the machine, and the other is your throttle. And you just gotta play twister a little bit and they'll come right off. If you lay the linkages the way you took them off, then you know where they go back on. It's pretty simple. That's the O-ring, and half the time that O-ring will get stuck on the intake manifold when you pull the carburetor off. So you always have to check the intake manifold to make sure that the ring and the white plastic disc are where they're supposed to be. You put the ring in first, you put the plastic disc in after, and it just clips in place. It doesn't matter how you put it on. Just make sure you didn't leave it on the manifold. Let's clean up this dirty shop. Wow, it took 2 snaps that time. That sucks. So we're just going to give this carburetor a quick tickle through. They're pretty easy to work on. It doesn't matter. I'm showing which carb cleaners I have. The Supertex from Walmart, AutoZone brand, is more expensive. But I want to use up what's left in that can. If I remember when I go to Walmart, I get it at Walmart because it's cheaper. By about 25% actually. Now it's up to $3.50 at AutoZone, and it's still like $2.80 or something at Walmart. So you take the 2 main bolts out of the bottom of the carburetor. They're 10mm. Now that bottom cup has an O-ring around it. and it's real tight going in and out of the carburetor. So when you take it out, you'll see in a second that I'll use a screwdriver, put it in there and twist, and that will pull the cup out of the carburetor. And when you go to put it back in, it's just as tight. So make sure you don't force it. See how I'm twisting it? I'm twisting the screwdriver to get that cup to pop out. There you go. When you put it back in, I've seen people put it in halfway and then try to use the screws to force it, and you'll break it. So now I'm showing you how I test to make sure that the main jet's clear. I blow in where the fuel line goes on, and you see that the float is in the down position. So the air should blow freely through. When I push it up, it should stop. See how I'm pushing it up to see if the air stops and letting it back down. That's showing me that we're clear. I can hear the air going through it. Now we're going to take out the main jets. I'm going to use my thumb. You see how I position my thumb and put the screwdriver on the thumb, not the float, not the carburetor. You'll break something. Use your thumb. It hurts a little bit, but it's worth it. You don't want to break these things. They're about 60 bucks a piece. Now you can see that there are 3 sections of that, and the main is the middle. We're going to use the same twist method with a screwdriver. We're going to stick it in there. We're going to twist to get that center cap off. Be gentle but forceful. If you work too hard at it or you push too hard, you can break it. It's all plastic, and they're expensive. They used to be cheap. Now because of COVID, they're expensive. Pull that off. There are 3 jet holes in that center post. Those are what get dirty. These are my welding tip cleaners. Just pick one that goes through the little holes. It's usually the smallest of the set. I don't even really buy those anymore because it's really only 1 or 2 wires I need, but I've had it forever. So there's 3 holes I'm pointing at right there. You're going to take those cleaning tip, you're going to stick it right through the hole, and you're just going to clean it out. Make sure there's nothing in there. Go through all 3 and then go through the top of the center post as well. They're sort of serrated on the edge like a file. That's what I was pointing at. And if you try to use one that's too large, you can actually make those jets larger because it'll file out the hole and make the hole too big. And then your machine won't run and you will be wondering why. So don't use a bigger tip than you need. Use the one that will fit easily and nicely through. All you're trying to do is get dirt and boogers out of there. Spray everything out. I spray through the tip and you can see it shoot out the 3 jets. These carburetors are real easy to clean. You can see everything, you can get everything apart, and as long as you press firmly but gently without twisting or bending, you won't break anything. I'm just cleaning out the secondary. There you go. I'm just showing you that I can test to see how far down it goes by pulling it out and sticking it to the side with my finger on it. Spray everything off. Yes, I have a dirty tray. Those are baking trays that I get from the Dollar Tree, where everything's $1.25 now. Now there's only one way for that to go on, and what I'm trying to show you there is that the right side of the screen is shorter than the left side, and it has a little slit on the top that goes in like a male and female that goes in. So you can't mess it up. It doesn't go on the other way. But that's usually where it gets stuck. The plastic drags on it, so you have to put it down on a flat surface, press firmly without twisting or bending, and you hear it snap into place. Now we know we're back together. Now all 3 of those posts are different lengths. So when you slide it back into the holes of the carburetor, if you put it in backwards, it won't slide down. So there's only one way for that to go in as well. Now because I'm working on a dirty desk and a dirty pan, I'm just kind of spraying everything off extra. Spray through the jet holes that are in the carburetor. Make sure there's nothing gunked up in there. And see how it slides all the way in and down? Watch what happens when I turn it around. See how it does not go down by itself? Now I turn it around and it slides all the way in by itself. Hold on to the carburetor with your fingers. Use your thumbs to press, squeeze, and it's right back together. That's all you got to do. Now we're going to put our cup back on. After I spray that off, see the red O-ring around it? That's what makes it tight going inside of the carburetor. So line up your bolt holes, your screw holes. Put it back together. Don't force it. We've already checked our O-ring and our clip to hold it in. That goes on the manifold. And the part of the carburetor where the fuel line connects always goes towards the fuel line. So you can't put that on wrong either. And I'm just talking gibberish and nonsense. Let's put our linkages back on. Sometimes it's easier to put one on before you put the other one on. And I've been doing this a long time, so I realized that the first one I put on is the easier of the two. If you try to put the other one on first, then you have trouble putting the second one on. That hose I just moved out of the way, that's the rebreather hose that goes on the plastic that I took off and pointed at. So make sure when you put your plastic cover back on, you put that hose back on. And then once your linkages are all together, you just push the carburetor onto the manifold, slide it on, wiggle it on, it goes right in place. There, I'm putting the hose back on. And when you put that hose back on and the little nubbins on the plastic go into the frame, see, it'll hold itself. So you know you've got everything right. Put your screws back in it. Now you're going to put your fuel tank back on. It's got two clips that stick out of the tank that go into two holes basically in the metal framing, and it just slides down in place. I always put my fuel line back on first because there's no room. Once the tank is on and that plastic is on, there's no room to get in there and get behind there with pliers. So take those right there and stick them into those holes, and it just slides right down on into there. It's nothing fancy. That's how it gets secured on. So once you match that up, push down, we're good to go. Let's put the top cowlings back on it. First would be your pull cord mechanism. And when you're putting that down in place, if it doesn't go all the way down or the screws don't match up very well, just grab the string and pull it out a little bit, a few inches, and it'll fall right into place. Put your screws back on, put your top cowling back on. You watch me take those apart, so you didn't need to see me put them back on. There's 2 screws in the red cowling and 3 in the black. Easy peasy. Pop that on, remember that little tab in the front, and let's see if she'll fire up. Remember, it was surging before, it was hunting. The RPMs were going up and down, up and down, up and down. It's because the carburetor was dirty. Oh, stop talking, moron. I talk way too much. A 45-minute video down to 14 minutes. And that's all you needed to see. There's no hunting, there's no surging. Now I use these little clips right here, I guess. I don't know what you call those. But I use those to hold the handle down, so I can play with the motor, walk away from it, let it run for 10 minutes, whatever. They're like $1 at the store. What do you call those things? Leave it in the comment, tell me what to call those things, because I am having a brain fart. And see, normally after a repair like that,
remember the first time we started it? It took 5 or 6 pulls.
Normally after a repair like that, I walk away and let it run for about 15 minutes.
Now it started on the first pull, and it's running like a top.
To make sure that everything stays clean and clear. Well, thanks for watching, I appreciate it. I hope this helped.